She thought her heart had closed forever after losing the person she loved most. Alone in a quiet cabin, Clara never expected that healing would arrive on 4 spotted paws, with soft eyes, silent affection, and a hug no one saw coming. This isn't just a story about a wild bobcat. It's about how love finds us when we stop searching. Stay with us to the very end, because what this animal does, again and again, will restore your faith in connection, in second chances, and in the wildest kind of love. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. If you enjoy the story, please like and follow. It helps us keep creating more. Your feedback means everything. Thank you. Clara Winslow had spent the past 5 years speaking mostly to pine trees and the wind. Her voice, once warm and filled with the laughter of a mother, had grown quiet. The cabin, nestled among the forests of British Columbia, echoed only with the sounds of her boots and the occasional call of a distant jay. She was at peace here, or so she told herself. Then came the call. It was Sarah Cormack, the field coordinator from Cascadia Wildlife Rescue. "Clara, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't urgent," Sarah began. "We've got a young bobcat cub, female, maybe 7 weeks old. Found her alone near a logging trail. No sign of the mother. She's weak, but alert. We're at capacity. We need someone to stabilize her for a couple of weeks." Clara's stomach tightened. "Sarah, I've told you, apex predators are a line for me. They're not meant to bond. They're meant to go back into the wild." I know, Sarah said gently. "But she needs quiet, and someone with hands like yours. Just a week or 2 to get her back on her paws." Clara hesitated. The cabin had space. The old exam table was still sturdy. The supply closet was stocked. But it wasn't about logistics. It was about walls. Emotional ones she'd built with the kind of precision only grief could teach. She looked out the window. The maple leaves had started turning. "Fine," Clara said, her voice low. "But she doesn't get a name, and she doesn't get me." The drive to the rescue center felt like driving into a past life. She hadn't been down that road in over a year. Sarah met her outside with a straw-lined carrier and a clipboard. "She's in there," Sarah said. "We've been calling her Lily, but you don't have to." Clara opened the carrier slowly. Inside, a small bobcat cub lay curled into herself. Ears too big, paws oversized, spots still soft like dappled sunlight. But it was her eyes that struck Clara, golden, open, and utterly without fear. She was used to wary stares, wild glares. This cub simply looked, straight at her, not challenging, just there. Clara blinked, then shut the carrier. "No names," she reminded herself under her breath. Back at the cabin, Clara moved through routine like muscle memory. Gloves on, feeding formula mixed precisely. She converted the spare room into a temporary habitat. No soft blankets, no cuddling. Just branches, a den box, a heat pad. Wild means wild. The first feeding went smoothly. The cub drank slowly, her tiny tongue lapping the formula with quiet urgency. Clara didn't speak. She didn't pet. She just watched. But on the second night, as Clara knelt to offer the bottle, something changed. The cub paused halfway through the feeding, set her paws against Clara's chest, and leaned in, pressing her head gently into the crook of Clara's neck. She didn't claw. She didn't demand. She just rested there, purring so softly Clara wasn't sure it was real. Clara froze. This wasn't normal. This wasn't protocol. This was a hug. For a long second, she didn't move. Then, carefully, Clara placed a hand on the cub's back. A tear slipped from her eye, unwanted, but true. "Oh no," Clara whispered. "No, no, no. You're not supposed to do that." The cub nuzzled closer, and Clara's arms, almost involuntarily, wrapped around her. "Maple," Clara said before she could stop herself. The name fell into the silence like a stone into still water. She looked down at the tiny body against her chest and exhaled slowly. "I guess we're doing this." Clara didn't sleep much the week after Maple arrived. It wasn't that the cub was difficult. She wasn't. In fact, Maple was remarkably calm for a wild animal. She ate without fuss, slept through the night, and never once hissed or scratched. But it was the quiet that kept Clara awake. The kind of quiet that wasn't empty, but expectant. Like something was shifting, and Clara didn't yet understand what. Every morning began the same. Clara, wrapped in her wool cardigan, would step softly into the spare room turned nursery. Maple would already be awake, paws tucked neatly under her chest, golden eyes tracking Clara's every move. She never made a sound. But when Clara crouched down to feed her, Maple would walk over, press her tiny front paws on Clara's knees, and lean in. A gesture that was unmistakable now. A hug. Clara still tried to keep her distance. She wore gloves. She avoided baby talk. She reminded herself, this is temporary. She's a bobcat, not a house pet, not a child. But Maple didn't care about categories. She seemed to understand something deeper, something beyond training or instinct. And with each silent touch, each quiet nuzzle, Clara felt her guard slip, thread by thread. One gray morning, Clara was especially tired. A sleepless night tending to a rescued owl had left her stiff and short-tempered. She spilled the formula, snapped at herself, and muttered, "Why am I even doing this?" Maple tilted her head, watching. Clara sat down on the floor with a sigh. Her joints protested. Her heart ached in that old, familiar way, the way it did every year around this time. Emily's birthday was next week. Another year without candles. Another year of silence. Maple padded over without a sound. She didn't meow or purr right away. She just climbed gently into Clara's lap, placed her paws on Clara's chest, and laid her head against Clara's shoulder. This time, she stayed longer, breathing slow, heart calm. The tears came before Clara could stop them. She didn't sob. She didn't speak. She simply sat there, arms folded around a wild animal who had crossed every boundary without a word. After a long while, Clara whispered, "You're not supposed to know how to do this." Maple purred softly, a vibration that settled into Clara's bones like warmth. That evening, Clara opened her old field journal, the one she hadn't written in since Emily's funeral. On a fresh page, she wrote, October 16th. Maple hugged me again today, not out of fear, not out of need. She just offered it. I didn't ask, but I needed it. She knows. Somehow, she knows. Days passed. The bond between them grew in quiet ways. Maple started following Clara's voice. When Clara stood outside the enclosure, reading weather reports or muttering about chores, Maple would sit by the mesh, eyes closed, listening like a child at story time. She began chuffing, too, a soft, breathy sound bobcats use to show comfort. Clara had only ever read about it in textbooks. Now it was part of her daily life. Maple would greet her with a chuff, offer her usual hug, and settle near Clara's feet while she worked. Clara no longer pretended this was temporary. One night, she picked up the phone and called Sarah. She's different, Clara said. Sarah paused. You named her. Yes, Clara. I know what you're going to say, but this isn't about me not letting go. This is about something I didn't expect. She doesn't just accept care, she returns it, intentionally. Sarah was silent a moment, then said, "Maybe she's not here just for healing. Maybe she is the healing." Clara looked across the room. Maple was curled in her bed of pine straw, one ear flicking as if she heard every word. It started with Eleanor. She was Clara's only real friend left in town, a retired schoolteacher with stiff joints and a sharper memory than most 20-year-olds. They'd once taken birding trips together before grief hollowed Clara's world. Now, Eleanor came by once a month with lemon cookies and gentle patience. Clara hadn't told her about Maple yet. Not really. Not about the hugs. "Clara, I brought those scones you like," Eleanor called as she let herself in. Clara hesitated, unsure whether to explain or hide the wild animal curled up in the sun-drenched corner room. But the decision was made for her. A soft chuff sounded from the enclosure. Maple had heard the voice and was already standing, alert, curious. Eleanor froze. "Is that a bobcat?" Clara nodded slowly. "Her name's Maple." "Her name?" Eleanor's brow rose. "I thought you weren't keeping her." Clara opened the side door leading to the enclosed sun porch where Maple now lived. The mesh walls let in the mountain breeze, and pine needles rustled gently outside. Maple sat at the far end, calm but watchful. "She's still wild," Clara said carefully, "but she's different." Eleanor stepped cautiously closer to the fence. Maple didn't flinch. She blinked once, then padded forward, stopping just shy of the mesh. For a long moment, woman and bobcat studied one another. Then Maple leaned in, pressing her head gently against the wire. A soft, almost imperceptible purr followed. "She's greeting you," Clara whispered. "You can reach out if you like." Eleanor extended a wrinkled hand toward the mesh. Maple didn't back away. Instead, she pressed her nose lightly against Eleanor's fingertips. It was simple, delicate, and deeply disarming. Eleanor's eyes shimmered. "Clara, she's hugging me." Clara smiled, the first unguarded smile in years. "That's what she does." Word spread, slowly but surely. Clara wasn't posting photos or calling the press, but in small towns, stories move on their own. "She's the woman with the hugging bobcat," someone said at the co-op. One afternoon, Mr. Henderson showed up at Clara's fence with a box of scrap wood and his 10-year-old grandson, Leo. Clara braced herself. Henderson had never approved of her wildlife work. "Boy wants to see the cat," he grunted. "Don't make a fuss." Leo was quiet, small for his age. His eyes never left the enclosure. Clara opened the outer gate and let him approach the mesh. "This is Maple. She won't come close unless she wants to." But she did. Maple walked forward slowly, ears relaxed, tail low. She sat a few feet from Leo, then rolled gently onto her side, exposing a patch of her spotted belly. Leo gasped. "She's not scared." "No," Clara said, "and she's not pretending either." Maple stretched, then rose and walked to the mesh. She touched her paw gently to the ground in front of Leo. He knelt, placing his own hand near hers. They stayed like that, silent, still. Then Maple leaned her body into the mesh, pressing the side of her face where Leo's hand waited. A hug through steel. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. "Well, I'll be. Smart cat." After that, Leo came often. He brought small offerings, feathers, acorns, even a brightly colored marble. Maple accepted them with quiet grace, often returning his gifts with a chuff or a soft lean. The enclosure was never a zoo. It was a sanctuary for both of them. One evening, after Leo left, Clara stood by the fence, watching Maple groom herself in the fading light. "She finds the ones who need her," Clara murmured, "even before they know they do." Maple looked up, ears twitching. Then she walked to Clara, pressed against the mesh, and gave her daily hug, this time longer. And Clara, finally, hugged back, not out of habit or wonder, but because it had become the language of her life. Spring came late that year. The rivers ran fast with meltwater, the raccoons returned in droves, and the news from the wildlife office was grim. A distemper outbreak had hit the valley. Clara stood at her porch with a mug of black tea growing cold in her hands. The warning had come in a formal email. Confirmed cases in raccoons near Larchwood Ridge. Exercise extreme caution for all susceptible species. Maple was vaccinated. Her enclosure was secure. But Clara's heart clenched with an old, familiar dread, the fear of losing something you've already dared to love. She scrubbed everything, twice, switched out bedding daily, wore clean gloves, boots, and coveralls every time she entered the enclosure. She stopped letting visitors come by, even Leo. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," she'd told him over the phone. "It's just for a while." Clara told herself she was prepared. She'd faced loss before. But nothing prepares you for waiting. Not when the thing you're waiting for is the one thing you can't bear. Maple noticed. She was more subdued. She still greeted Clara with her soft purr and leaning hugs, but now lingered longer, pressing her body into Clara's arms and watching her face like she was reading it. Some days, Clara would crouch beside the fence just to breathe the same air. "You know something's wrong, don't you?" she whispered one night. Maple responded the only way she knew how, by walking to the fence, rising on her hind legs, and wrapping her front paws as far as they could reach around Clara's arm. Her fur was warm, her eyes steady. It was the stillest Clara had felt in days. But the anxiety never fully faded. Clara barely ate, slept in short, shallow bursts. Every time she heard a cough or shuffle from the enclosure, her heart jumped. Then came the moment that broke her. She was doing evening rounds, flashlight in hand, checking the locks, the food bowl, the perimeter. The air was damp with mist. As she turned back toward the house, a rustle in the trees startled her. A raccoon, staggering, eyes unfocused, foam on its mouth. She froze, watched it stumble, then collapse just feet from Maple's enclosure. Clara moved fast. She had to. Called animal control, reported the carcass, disinfected everything. But inside, she unraveled. She sat down hard on the porch steps, shaking. And she cried. No, not cried. Broke. All the years of loss, all the fear of attachment, all the hope she'd quietly dared to believe in, rushing up at once like a dam burst. Behind the mesh, Maple appeared. She didn't make a sound. She just came forward, leaned gently into the fence, and placed both paws against the wire. Her head tilted, as if to say, "I'm here." Clara stood, walked over, and leaned into the mesh, pressing her forehead against hers. "Please be okay," she whispered. They stayed like that until the stars blinked through the mist. Days passed. The raccoon had not been inside the enclosure. No contact, no contamination. Animal control confirmed it. Maple remained healthy. Clara resumed breathing. The worst had passed, but something in her had changed. She kept Maple's daily journal, but added something new. Sketches. Not scientific diagrams, but soft pencil lines. Maple resting in sunlight. Maple pressing a paw against her hand. Maple hugging. It had become more than observation now. It was devotion. One evening, Clara watched Maple chase a leaf across her enclosure, leaping like a kitten, then landing with a thump and a grunt of satisfaction. Clara laughed out loud for the first time in weeks. "You're a miracle, you know that," she called out. Maple turned, gave a low chuff, and trotted over for her evening hug. And Clara thought, I don't just want her to survive. I want her to live. The permit came in a plain envelope. Clara almost didn't open it right away. She had waited months, filing paperwork, submitting site photos, consulting with exotic animal specialists and wildlife authorities. But now, it was here. Authorized lifetime custody, one female bobcat, ID number BC-0137-M, Maple. Clara stared at the words for a long time, then folded the paper neatly, placed it on the kitchen table, and walked outside. Maple was stretched out on her favorite rock inside the enclosure, soaking in the spring sun. Her spotted coat shimmered, her breathing was steady. She looked peaceful. No, present. She opened one eye and saw Clara approaching. Clara knelt beside the mesh, reached her hand forward, and said softly, "You're home, sweet girl." Maple stood, patted over, and offered her usual hug, paws on the fence, head pressed to Clara's arm. But today, Clara opened the side gate and stepped inside. No gloves, no protocols, just trust. Maple didn't flinch. She leaned into Clara's legs, nuzzling her with the same gentle strength she had shown since day one. Clara knelt down and, for the first time in the open air, wrapped her arms fully around the bobcat. "You've been mine for a long time," Clara whispered. "Now it's official." In the months that followed, Clara expanded the enclosure. She hired local contractors to build a wooden walkway that arched through the trees, added a climbing platform, a waterfall-fed pool, and 3 den boxes hidden in the rocks. Neighbors came by to help. Leo helped plant wildflowers. Eleanor donated a bench for sitting near the fence. Even Mr. Henderson brought over a stack of smooth stones for Maple to sunbathe on. Clara carved a small sign to place outside the gate. "Maple Sanctuary, gentle heart, wild soul." The world beyond their ridge never stopped spinning. There were still calls about rescue animals, storms that knocked out power, and the occasional ache in Clara's joints. But inside the space they had built, within the rhythm of chuffs, hugs, and silent companionship, there was calm. One summer afternoon, Leo sat near the enclosure, legs crossed, a sketch pad on his lap. Maple, now nearly full-grown, approached him. She didn't press into the mesh this time. She simply lay down beside it, mirroring his posture. "Do you think she misses the wild?" Leo asked. Clara thought for a moment. "I think she is the wild, just the kind that knows how to love." Leo nodded thoughtfully, then returned to his drawing. That evening, as the sun dipped below the pines, Clara sat alone on her porch swing. In her lap was a photo album. David on their wedding day, Emily's kindergarten picture, a few of Clara herself holding injured owls, raccoons, even the occasional porcupine. And now, page after page of Maple. Maple curled in her arms as a cub, Maple pressing her face against the fence, Maple standing on her hind legs, paws outstretched, a wild creature whose touch had undone years of silence. From the enclosure came a familiar sound, soft footfalls, a chuff, then the rustle of paws near the gate. Maple approached the fence and stood tall, reaching her paws through, as far as they could go. Clara stood up, walked to her, and leaned close. "You saved me, Maple. You really did." They stayed like that for a while. 2 figures framed by fading light and pine shadows. A woman who thought she was too broken to feel again, and a bobcat who never needed words to teach her how.